Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 193.
I would say cycle life, I would say in the 2,000 to 3,000 range.
Oh, okay. That's way better than I had thought.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Welcome back to Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast. And today I'm here with two people from AccelTex, Chris Marco and Carter Burke. How are you doing, guys?
Doing great, Keith. And Matthew, thank you for having us on today.
Yeah, everything's great here. Glad to be here with you guys.
Well, no one else can see this because this is an audio podcast, but you guys are both sitting in front of a really blue wall. Tell me about the blue wall.
Man, it's AccelTex blue all the time, Keith. Like I told you, you gotta support your colors.
So what's the Pantone color? When you go to talk to your printer, you have to say, I want this Pantone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I have it, but I do not have it memorized. That would be a marketing question. I apologize, but I could get it for you if you so are interested.
So AccelTex blue actually has a number, I'm sure.
It does. It does. Yes, sir.
Well, we're here to talk about the Wi-Fi side of AccelTex, and specifically, I want to talk about your Accelerator battery pack and the new version that's coming out. So how about if you first just tell our listeners in the first round, what was the idea behind the V1 it's been almost a year now, right?
Yeah, I think originally on the version 1 of the battery pack, the idea was really trying to give site survey engineers a tool that was smaller, compact, easier to use, longer life, and as opposed to some solutions that have been in the market for a long time that even use things like lead acid battery technology were very heavy, very clunky, hard to recharge, and just not as portable as we want them to be. So we wanted to be a tool that could be very portable, slip into a computer bag if you need to, but at the same time have the kind of features that you need to have when you're out doing a site survey engineer.
And it worked quite well. I've personally used mine quite a few times. We had them in the WLN Pro store and at the WLPC conference store as well. I like that you can have both 802.3 AF AT as well as 24 volt. There's times when you just need an extra 24 volt PoE, not for all enterprise class APs, but there are times I've needed that, and it came in very handy. And the other, I don't know who thought of it, but putting in the male-to-male 2.1 millimeter connector for 12 volt, I think I used that almost as much as the PoE. So thanks for putting that cable in there.
Yeah, that's been that 12 volt port out in the back, has been very, very popular, more popular than we thought it would be. We used some really practical applications where you could use that, and take advantage of the fact you had this battery pack, but it's been very well received feature that has been used in a lot of applications we never really thought it would be used for. So it's a great feature that we definitely will not take out of the battery pack.
And since I'm, what I use it for is if I've got it, well, I've got a lot of 12 volt other things I charge, but when you're doing site surveys, a lot of APs have a 12 volt DC in, and then I save all the conversion cost of going from 12 volt, pushing it up to PoE, then it's just going to get turned back down to 12 volt on the other end anyway. So
yeah.
Good choice. And the other is I've had to at least twice now open it up to the TSA agents, and I like that it has really big letters saying what its rating is, so you can actually point to it. It's not like hidden. You don't need to take it out of magnifying glass. It's readable even from old folks like us. I'm talking about you, Carter.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Keith.
We were in that soldering class together and both wishing we had magnifying glasses.
We wish we were, and I realized very quickly in that class that I don't have a great future in that. I have people that do that for me, and that's the reason why.
It was still a fun thing.
Oh, it was great. It was a lot
and
of fun.
Joe will be doing it again in Phoenix too. So if anybody missed out on the soldering deep dive with making your own potato pie, that's going to be available again. Well, so you made this device for doing portable powering. What other uses have people found for it?
Well, a lot, obviously outside of powering a standard, 802.3 AF or AT type of device. Again, it's the the 12-volt port in the pack. We've had the 12-volt port. We've had a lot of interesting applications with the ability to provide 12 volts out. Like, for example, we've seen customers use it with like a cellular router, like a Cradlepoint router, that they can plug it in and use that to power it remotely. And we've seen those routers powered for 8 to 10 hours with the battery pack, where they can provide a hotspot type of cell with with cellular backhaul. And that's been kind of an interesting application. We've actually developed what we call a Cradlepoint to Go kit, where we've got the battery pack in there and it can, power these routers. And it's almost like a portable communications kit that is used in disaster recovery and all kinds of interesting applications.
And the nice thing is it's very light and easy to carry, which makes it excellent to be portable.
I was just on your site looking at that going, hey, that's kind of a cool thing. What's the kind of rounding? Is it a cellular antenna?
Yeah, that's a 5-in-1 antenna. It has 2 LTE ports, 2 Wi-Fi ports, both dual band, and a GPS port. So that would plug into the cellular router with the battery pack powering it. And then the cool thing was we actually designed that unit where you can use the PoE out on the battery pack connected to the router and plug in, something like a SIP phone, a camera. And so when you're remote, you've got the cellular backhaul, but you're able to power the devices with the battery pack. So the battery pack's not only powering the cellular router, the Cradlepoint router, but it's also powering, again, like a camera or a SIP phone that, it's all connected. And you've got your backhaul connectivity.
So that one antenna is driving everything that Cradlepoint needs, both its LTE and its Wi-Fi.
Correct.
And have you noticed any difference with the lid down or lid up on that?
Not really. I mean, there just hasn't been much attenuation with the lid down on that. So it's been kind of cool.
And you're getting 10 hours with it.
8 to 10 hours in that range with both the Wi-Fi running and the obviously cellular backhaul. There's
times I wish I had one of those. When you're someplace and you just absolutely need Wi-Fi and you don't have it.
Yep.
So you have your, I don't know your part number so well. I just call it the V1.
Yep.
You have a baby one too. It's like the 0.
Yes.
I don't know anything about that one. So fill us in on what your baby battery is.
Yeah. So that one is more of a lower cost entry level battery pack. It's not going to do near as much and doesn't have as many features. It's very similar. It's similar in size, form factor. The battery cell that's inside, it's the same, but it's going to have limitations. It only does AF power, and it's not even fully AF compliant power. So it's just going to send power no matter what. That gets cost out of the battery pack. And then it also has a 24-volt port as well. But then that battery pack it comes with a case, but it doesn't have the protective case and the straps and a lot of the other features that you get with the other battery packs. So it's more of a low-cost entry level, doesn't have the features, but something that we have some customers that really are almost more interested in the 24-volt port than anything else, and they don't need more than AF. So it's a pretty cost-effective way to get that functionality, and a much a better price point.
But in a PoE environment, it's 10100 only.
Correct. It's right. That's the other downside to that would be 10100, not 10,000.
During last year's WLPC, one of the sessions was running. We used your Accelerator V1s for a bridging deep dive, and found that no matter what we did, we kept getting 100 meg limits on our bridge links, and then later found out it was because we're using the 24-volt and it has a cap at 100 meg.
Correct.
It was understandable at that point to go, oh, okay, it's not our bridges.
Yeah.
So just a heads up, if you are doing the 24-volt, it is 100 meg, which for a lot of instances is all you need. So let's bring it up to current space. Well, not quite current, as Carter said in the pre-show. Just about ready to be shipping a new V2. So what was your process of coming up with the V2 design and requirements?
Well, we had some ideas, some additional features and capabilities we wanted to add to the battery pack. And then we got a lot of great feedback from the field. A lot of engineers gave us, what they thought were, would be priorities and a list of things would be cool to have in it. And so that's kind of what drove this next generation of the battery pack and the features that we put into it. And we can go through what the differences are between the current V2 and what I'd call really, or the V1 to our V2, which is going to be this latest greatest version.
Well, go ahead. Let's hear about the latest greatest.
From a power perspective, the differences are there's probably 3-4 different differences. The PoE output, we're going to support not only 802.3 AF and AT, but we're also supporting BT power as well too, and that's going to be both type 3 and 4.
Well, tell us what BT means.
Well, BT is for I guess before in the past it was called PoE++, but it's really focused on 60 watts and 90 watts. So, you have with AF, you've got 15 watts. With AT, you've got up to 30 watts of power. And then when you get into BT, it's, devices that need higher levels of power going into 60 and 90 watts. And the difference between the 60 and the 90 is the type 3 versus type 4 and that BT support level.
And you support both of those with the new one?
We support both of them with the battery pack, yes.
Then my favorite is you added USB-C,
yes,
which I think everything in the world should have USB-C. Will it have only a C port or will it have an A port as well?
It has a USB 2.0 port. We maintain that so you can charge your cell phone. But we also added the USB-C port so that you could potentially use it to charge your laptop or other devices that need more than that need higher wattage to be able to charge. So that USB-C port will do up to 20 volts and 5 amps, so you could get as much as 100 watts out of it. And so you can use that for a lot of different applications. But I think a lot of it was people were interested in being able to, especially engineers in the field, hey, if I want to charge my laptop and give it a little more power, I could do that at the same time while I was also powering an access point. So USB-C was a big, a lot. We got that particular feature was something that was really asked for by a lot of different engineers. So we incorporated that into this new generation of the battery pack as well too.
It's full USB-C PD capable.
Correct.
So
yes.
it does all the thinking part. Whatever you put in, it just figures it out.
Yes, it does the handshake and it will determine what the power requirements are, and you should be good to go.
Have you tested it with like MacBooks?
Yep, works great. MacBooks, and I've got a Lenovo ThinkPad that we have tested it with as well too. So it works great.
So here's the bigger question. Have you tried using the Accelerator, either V1 or V2, to charge either a AirCheck G2 or a Sidekick?
I have not tried to charge either one of those. We've just tested with laptops.
Okay, just throwing that out there. I know it's only 12 volt, which means it could take forever to charge it. But with USB-C to an adapter, thinking up to 20 volts, you might be able to drive some of those as well. I just know there's a lot of people have been asking, I would just like to have one device that I can charge everything with, and that might fit.
Well, those are some things that we're looking at for even our future generations of the battery pack as well too.
And you added a threaded little insert so you could mount it on tripods.
Yeah. So outside of the kind of the power side features of it, we did add an interesting feature that was really feedback from the field saying, could we have some kind of threaded insert where, we could, come up with our own mounts. And as long as I've got a threaded insert, then I know what I can attach it to. I know how I can attach to the battery pack. I'll just, develop something that fits for me and how I want to use it versus, having to use, so say the straps that come with it. So we put a 1/4 inch, it's a standard threaded 1/4 inch insert that'd be similar to you'd use for like a tripod. And you could use a tripod mount on it if you wanted to and put it on a tripod, or you could, use that to develop your own mount and get creative on how you want to mount it in a way that suits your needs.
And you can get 3/4 inch threads to go to any of the GoPro type mounts.
Yes.
And there's a whole wide variety of those. So you wouldn't need to, I like the straps and the little case that comes with it. That's a nice add-on, but it feels so good to hold it.
Yeah.
I like the rubber. I love the rubberized coating, and even though the little cutouts work for the kind of leatherette case around the outside, it shifts around, and sometimes the case will shift and I'll hit the button.
Yes.
Turn it on. So I leave mine naked most of the time. But then again, I have my iPhones naked too.
Where we tried to, around the power button, enlarge the cutout on the leather so that if it does shift a little bit, it doesn't catch that power button. That was some other, great feedback we got from the field as well too.
Oh, so I'm not the only one who's had that happen?
No, not at all. It's happened to me, pulling it in and out of my computer bag at the airport.
And if you don't see the light turn on, it just sits there and kind of drains. But the nice part is I've had mine off for weeks and walk in and it's still charged. So It's got a pretty slow drain, which is nice. And the little visual cue of how much is left. I've never calibrated it to see how close it is to reality, but it's just easy to look and say, oh, 20% left. Have you guys done any testing to see how realistic that fall off is?
I would say it's pretty close. It's pretty close. I mean, when we see it start to fall off, you see more than anything, you'll see it fall off more quickly as it gets to a lower percentage. But it seems to be pretty accurate especially when you can toggle between percentage of battery and voltage. When you look at the voltage, and we've measured voltage on it, so it's pretty accurate. And there's some interesting feedback we've gotten from the field. People are like, well, why is the meter on all the time? Why won't it shut off? Isn't that draining battery? Well, it does drain battery if it's on, but it's so small it's not even noticeable. To your point, I've had my battery pack in a charged and in a bag. I haven't used it for weeks, and I come out and it's still at 99% charge. But the reason we leave that on is so that if you're using it, you can just glance at it, and it's pretty big numbers. So if you're 3 or 4 feet from it, you can still see what's the percentage on the battery pack. You don't have to go all the way over to the battery pack, push the button to actually see it. You can just kind of glance up at it and see, hey, where am I at on the battery pack? Which is kind of nice when you're doing a survey and you don't have to stop what you're doing to go, what's the fuel gauge? Hit the fuel gauge on the pack.
Well, talking from an old man with old man eyes, I appreciate that. In any other options you're looking at from a charging standpoint, I was looking to see if I could get this isn't you, but you might think of it as a product. Getting a PoE injector to recharge my Accelerator battery. I'm on site. It's there. Power's coming out of the wall. Eventually, I'm going to push AT or BT out the other way. Why not take it on the way in?
We've had that asked. We've also had people ask about charging it with a USB-C power plug versus a barrel connector and a separate power adapter. So those are things we are definitely looking at, I'd say, for future generations and trying to figure out how we can incorporate it. The one thing we're really trying to do is avoid making the form factor any bigger, and trying to keep it small and slim, because that's really been a benefit of how compact it is and how easy it is to carry. So we're definitely evaluating those for future generations, but taking into consideration some of these other issues as well too.
The good news is, as much as the V2 is going to have a lot of cool things, we're going to get new feedback saying, this is awesome. I wish you'd have these things. And that's okay. That's part of the deal. So there'll be a V3 at some point, I'm sure. So
yeah, and we've had people ask us about, hey, could I, y'all have a PoE injector that you could power with the USB out port on the battery pack? So we're looking at that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, it's just the little bricks are just the pain. I mean, how many of those you want to carry? So I'm trying to get it down where I just carry 100 watt brick that charges everything. So if you had USB-C in instead of just out, that would solve my problem. I don't have to carry one with me.
You're not the first person I've heard that from. So that's good. That's good feedback.
Well, what's next for AccelTex? Not just in the battery world. I was surprised by your Cradle Point offering. What other kind of cool stuff do you have coming down the pike for wireless folks?
Well, I think if we look at across all of our product lines, we've got new products coming out in terms of unique antennas. We've got some smaller form factor antennas that we're coming out with for stadium deployments and other applications where customers want things that are just aesthetically pleasing. So we're really trying to come out with, across a lot of the product lines, more compact and aesthetic focused kind of derivatives of the current products that we have now, whether it's enclosures and customizing them, using skins and those types of things. But with antennas as well too, we're trying to really make things smaller and more aesthetically pleasing, so it's easier to hide and easier to install, those types of things.
And when also Keith staying on top of the different OEMs on making sure we're coming out with the latest AX stuff, whether it's even the antennas, but also mounting solutions for, just to make sure that, we're thinking through the different scenarios. The good news is we're able to work closely with those, different companies to stay kind of ahead of the curve when they're launching stuff, which helps.
Well, I know you've worked with Ekahau on getting your antennas into their software. Just today, kind of telling when we're recording this, this morning, Ekahau released their some updates to their software, and one of the pieces is when you drill down to an antenna, there's a way you can hang it on a wall instead of on a ceiling, which a lot of people do. But you have mounts that allow them to stay in the I want to say correct form with the dome down. So give your feedback to Ekahau on that one, because when they mount them on the wall, they mount them domes to the side.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll have to get with Miko.
So get with Miko and say, no, we have a way to fix that. It doesn't have to go that way.
Yeah, I'll get with him. That's good feedback. I did not know that, but thank you.
Well, it was only like 2 hours ago, so you have an excuse. Well, I want to thank you for your time talking about your new batteries. I can't wait to see the new V2 come out. I've worked mine pretty hard. I don't know the exact chemistry of your batteries, but what's the recharge cycle that we should be looking at when we get one of these? How many times should we feel pretty comfortable in using it?
I would say cycle life, I would say in the 2,000 to 3,000 range.
Oh, okay. That's way better than I had thought.
And plus, we have the fast charger, Keith, that charges in about 3 hours. So we're able to, get it recharged quickly, which was a big goal of ours always.
Is there a limitation if I've been draining it, and it gets a little warm? Does that fast charge go slower because it's got to cool off first, or can it just take it right from I'm empty, reload me fast?
I mean, that's what we've seen. We haven't noticed degradation based upon heat or other issues. So, I would say whether you're halfway down or you're all the way down, I mean, we've seen that it's been pretty consistent in recharging at a pretty, consistent rate.
Well, I'm kind of lazy, I guess, because I've never emptied one.
Well, and you can also, if you're in a situation, you can charge it while you're using it. Just if you're ever in a situation, some people do that just to keep it charged. But, obviously it's a battery pack. You're usually not getting that. You're not having that flexibility.
Yeah, that's an important point. We did design it where it can be charged while it's operating. So if you have the ability to plug it in, then you theoretically would never lose a charge on it while you're powering devices.
Well, we all just wanted to bring in one final point here. In the WLPC in Prague, we were running some experiments on some other equipment, and someone said, "Oh, we need something," and it was Fernay just reached in his bag, pulled out his accelerator, plugged it in, and we didn't have any 24-volt power to fire up some little devices, and he's like, "Oh, here it is." But he was out of charge, so he charged his with his 12 volt and then took 24 volt out at the same time and just made it work.
Cool.
So it's kind of a flexible little tool that gives you lots of choices between what you're charging. And adding the new BT as well as USB-C is going to give us even more things we can do with it in the future.
Yeah, we're excited to get it in the market.
What's the price point on the? Well, actually, since we've talked about all three, your baby one, which has a 0 number, the one, which is the V1, and the V2, what are the price points on those?
So the entry level model is list price on that's $169.95. Then the version 1, the next gen, was at $329.95, and then the latest version to come out is going to be $379.95.
So that's not only $50 more, and then you pick up USB-C and go all the way up to 90 watts. The V1 and V2 both have the same size battery, so we can get it past TSA.
All three of them have the same size batteries, and that's by design as well too, which is important to understand that as long as you stay under 100 watt hours of rating, then whether you're checking it, whether you're going on an airline, and even more importantly, from our perspective, is when you stay under that limitation, then you can ship via FedEx Air. So with appropriate labeling on the outside of the box. So that's why we've designed around that maximum capacity, so you don't lose the ability to do those things.
Would you happen to have a document that I could put in the case with it? Some airlines are a little freaky and just see a big battery and kind of freak out. You try to show them the numbers and they don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So it'd be helpful to have a official looking document for some international TSA agent.
What you're asking about, right now we don't include something that they open it up, that they'd look at it and would say that. That's actually good feedback to kind of, even if it's just like a little small card that basically just for those flying specs, if you will. Right now we could get you a full spec sheet, nothing wrong with that. It's just probably a lot more information than you need. I guess you can highlight the areas, but having something small that would go in there, just knowing that people are going to be carrying these on airlines, is actually pretty good feedback. It wouldn't be that hard to do. And
I haven't had any trouble with TSA in the US because I can speak English to them and explain it and say, look, right here, it shows 100 watt hours. It's the rule, da, da, da. But sometimes internationally, they're not quite so understanding of my English, and having a printed thing that looks like it had, FAA approval. And so if FAA and US DOT have a specific regulation that you can quote and highlight and then say, we're here, we inside. I think an official document just go a long way to making people go, oh, okay.
Based on what, FFA and Department of Transportation, but we could figure out, let's talk, we can talk to our marketing team, figure out something that could be popped in there. That's good feedback though.
And you could color it blue too.
Well, there's some international standards for batteries and what's acceptable in terms of shipping these batteries. And I know that, like, for example, FedEx follows the international regulation, which is called UN 3481. So when your product is under the 100 watt hours and it meets these certain requirements, then you can ship the product. And as long as you label it UN 3481, then it'll just flow right through the system.
That sounds like it would be a perfect thing to add on there. Well, thanks for talking to us today for the last little bit. I appreciate you taking your time to share with us. Any kind of point in time when we can expect seeing the V2s hit the market?
Before the end of this calendar year, soon.
So this could be a nice Christmas present people ask for.
Exactly. Yeah, you may get one in your stock, Keith.
Yeah, we'll talk to our spouses and say, yes, this is my Christmas gift, and we could use it on vacation too to keep your iPhone charged.
It's true.
You have an ulterior motive. Well, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you probably in Phoenix in a couple months.
Yes, sir. Sounds great. You guys have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for including us.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
10 Talks.
Hello. I want to talk to you about RF maths and wireless. Didn't we just do this? Yes, but Gunnar had a much bigger budget than me. Mine is the low budget version of calculating wireless airtime. So my muggles, right? People that don't understand the magic of Wi-Fi. My only link to magic and Wi-Fi is that my dad was actually called Merlin, so I am the son of Merlin. I like it. That was his real name. Really, yeah. So Wi-Fi can seem like magic. It can seem very, very magical. But we need to understand some basic premises of Wi-Fi. Okay, it's based on the CSMA CA, the listen before talk strategy. You listen. Is anybody else talking? No. Okay, pick a random number, count down. When the medium's free, you transmit. Nice and simple. Little traffic air control in the bottom here. That the importance of coordination, right? And I love this little children's book, Share and Take Turns, which is basically our mantra in Wi-Fi, right? It's statistical. It uses the concepts of acknowledgements and retries. We use timers, spaces, and slots. It's contention-based. We have the concept of a random number. Pick a random number. So I'm connected to 48 megabits. Let's keep 48 megabits, keep it simple. My throughput is 24 megabits. Why is my throughput 24 megabits when I'm connected at 48 megabits? We always assume, as the very basics with wireless, with Wi-Fi, there's a 50% overhead. So I want to show you where that 50% overhead comes from. Okay. So you pick a random number from between 0 and something called hash max, which varies based on have you tried to send a retry or not. So this is one of my favorite things. You've got to fight for your right to transmit. It's called the Beastie Boy algorithm. Keith, you always call it the game, the DCF algorithm. We talked about it earlier. You don't just transmit. I need to say something. Well, I picked a random number of 15, so I'm counting 15 seconds, right? Nobody else is talking, but I have to wait before I transmit. And it's not 15 seconds, it's 15 slot times. So we have to dig deep and look at the maths. So this is the basic algorithm, variations of the algorithm. Ignore this one for now. Is the medium free? Yes. Have you waited? Something called a diffs. A diffs is an amount of time that you must wait. And the reason we specify it as a diffs, not as a single time, is because it's different based on whether it's 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. Have you waited a diffs? No. Then you got to wait. Okay, go back around. Have you waited a diffs? Yes. Is your random number equal to 0? I haven't got a random number. Pick one. 12. Is it equal to 0? No, it's 12. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Somebody else comes along. Hello, I'm going to be talking for 137 microseconds. You set your nav to 137 microseconds, you start counting down. You don't even bother doing anything. Why bother? He just told you he's going to be talking for the next 137 microseconds. Okay. That little timer expires. Is the medium free? Yes. Have you waited a diff since the medium became free? No. So you've got to go back again. Is the nav equal to 0? Is the medium free? Have you waited the diffs? Yes. Is your random number equal to 0? No, it was equal to 5. Then we had to come back and start doing it all over again. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eventually, is your nav equal to 0? Yes. Is the medium free? Yes. Have you waited the diffs? Yes. Is your random number equal to 0? Yes. You may transmit. Okay? So I call it the DCF dance or the Beastie Boy algorithm. You've got to fight for your right to transmit. We also have acknowledgements. When you transmit a frame, you have an acknowledgement to that frame. I refer to this as an atomic exchange. You do a transmit, you wait a SIFS, you get back an acknowledgement. If any part of that goes wrong, that transmission has failed. You don't know if your transmission failed or if the acknowledgement failed. It doesn't matter. It's an atomic exchange. It's one entity. You just simply retransmit. So until you receive back a positive acknowledgement for a unicast frame you've transmitted, there are block acknowledgements. We'll ignore them for now. But every unicast frame is acknowledged, usually by an acknowledgement frame. Okay? And we start off picking a random number between 0 and 15. If we don't get a positive acknowledgement, it's a bit more mathematical, but this is for muggles, remember? We double the number, we add 1. We double the number, we add 1. So every time we do another retry, we double the number, we add 1. Double the number, we add 1. You now pick a random number between 0 and whatever the current version of this algorithm is. Okay? So that's the foundational rules we need to know. I've got about 4 minutes left, and we need to make sure we understand the concept. I know it's not the greatest diagram ever, but it's functional. If Lee Badman can draw things on, I can draw them. It's functional, right? You get an IP packet, the IP packet comes down. That is what is known as an MSDU. You add 8 bytes to it, the same 8 bytes every single time. The IP packet plus the 8 bytes is the MSDU. The MSDU is sent down to the next layer down, where you put a MAC header at the front, a MAC trailer at the back. That becomes an MPDU. That is sent down to the physical layer, where the physical layer of wireless does something that I don't believe any other networking system ever does. It adds a physical header to the frame. The physical header tells us lots of stuff about what's coming in the next frame. That becomes a PPDU. Okay? So now it's time for a spreadsheet. This is what I wanted to introduce you all to, and it's much, much simpler than the one we saw previously. Basically, I'm going to release this eventually, when I tell you a little bit more. You can see down here that, let's say we send in 20 bytes. Okay, you transmit in 20 bytes. Here you see how long it will take to transmit those 20 bytes at different speeds. That's 160 bits. That's the speed. How long does it take to send it in microseconds? Okay, so you basically take the IP payload, that's 20 bytes. You add the 8 bytes for the MSDU. Up here, I've done a very oversimplified. We just assume in 30 bytes overhead for the frame. It's a data frame, okay? It has a QoS field. It's a data frame. That now magically makes it be 58 bytes. So to transmit a 20-byte IP packet is going to take you 58 bytes. For reasons that I'll more than happy to talk to you about later, you get another 3 added on for stuff. That makes it 61 bytes. Those 61 bytes, when transmitted at 24 megabits, for example, will take 20 microseconds. Now, you come down, there's different calculation for G and A, 2.4 gig and 5 gig. You've got to add on, there's the diffs is different. Then you pick a random number. Now, I tried to make it so we got some little cleverness here. By changing, you can choose what quality of service you're changing. By choosing the quality of service, it slightly varies the AIFS value, and you pick a number between 0 and 3 if it's 6, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's keep it as non-QoS for now and keep it simple. You will pick a random number which will make you wait between 0 and 135 microseconds. Your physical header has a cost as well. Your frame, we just calculated as 20.33, so it will take between 68 and 208 microseconds to transmit a frame. Then you have a CIFS. Then there is no random number for the return in CIFS. The CIFS takes approximately 42 microseconds. So the entire frame exchange can take between 121 to 256 microseconds. Yay. Fantastic, right? Well, what happens if we up the data payload by a factor of 10? Let's now transmit 200 bytes. So if we transmit 200 bytes, that is going to take, obviously, 10 times as long. Well, no. That is the big surprise here. When you convert this to 200 bytes, okay, same calculation, it takes just slightly twice as long. Because it's not the actual transmission of the bytes that are the issue. Let's convert this to 2,000 bytes. Okay, obviously that's going to take a lot longer. No. Once you transmit the 20,000 bytes, oops, gone a bit mad there, and you transmit it at 866 megabits, now the maths are going a bit wrong here, this is more of an assumption, okay, you're still having to pay this price of the Beastie Boy algorithm. So let's say we transmit in 1 byte, the minimum possible. Okay, that gets sent in a minuscule amount of microseconds. But you still have to wait between 101 and 236 microseconds for the pick a random number, count down, where the diffs, stop, where the sifs, send an acknowledgement. 14 seconds to spare, that's it. I will release this and play with it. A much, much simpler version of what we saw earlier. I do want to play with the one we saw earlier, though, because that takes into account AX and AC. This is just very, very simple and basic. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.